to my channel, 25th and South. My name is Cece, and today we're going to be building this house here in The Sims 4. Now, this house is on a 20 by 15 lot in Newcrest, and it comes in at little over 70,000 simoleons. And I saw this house on Pinterest and I thought it was so adorable, and I knew that I could build it because it's very buildable. It's very easy to build, one of the requirements I have when I'm trying to build a house from reference. And as I was putting it together, I started weaving a story about where this house is, who lives here, and I came up with this couple, this older retired couple, possibly a farmer and his teacher wife, who decided to give up their farm and move to Newcrest to be closer to their children and grandchildren. And I just imagine that they found this little house, this one bedroom, one bathroom home, and thought this would be the perfect place. Now, the reason why I kept it one bedroom is I feel as if the grandpa, who I've named Barry, would not want a bunch of people staying over his house. I just imagine that, you know, he and his wife, Mary and Barry, had maybe 4 or 5 kids, and you know, their house was always so full of people, and then those kids had kids, and you know, they have over other relatives, and so by the time they're ready to retire, they just want to be in the house by themselves. And so they didn't want to entice anyone to spend the night, so they just bought a one bedroom. Now, I do imagine that they live close enough to their children and grandchildren that the younger kids will come to their house after school and draw pictures and listen to stories that Grandpa Barry would tell, and you know, eat a little snack that their grandmother Mary would make. But as soon as 6 o'clock rolls around, those kids are gone. They're at home, they're doing homework, they're nowhere near this house, just the way Barry would like it. And so for this build, as you see, I've just already finished sort of setting up the exterior a little bit. Now I'm kind of working on doors and windows. I used a lot of base game on the exterior of the house, base game doors and windows, and the siding is mostly base game, as well as the stairs, because all of that stuff is very traditional, and I just imagine that Mary and Barry are very traditional type people, that they just like really simple things. Now I use a lot of base game outside, but I use a lot of cats and dogs inside, because I feel that pack just sort of, it speaks to that kind of farm life, and I just thought that that's the kind of style they would go for. I did decide to put a chimney, and I love using this technique of just using little room to make chimneys out of. I just think it really fits the build really well. Another reason why I use cats and dogs is Mary and Barry have a cat called Rosie, and I wanted them to really make the house a lot about her. So she has this huge little cat jungle gym in the kitchen, and she's got her little bed in the living room, and I just imagine that, you know, Mary and Barry live here, but Rosie owns this house. So as you can see, I'm just kind of working out the exterior colors. I already worked out the floor plan. It wasn't that hard to put the floor plan together, fairly easy. And I'm just now putting in lights so that I can see when I'm putting down floors and wall coverings what that will look like. And at the back of the house, I started to put a deck, but then I realized I'm not going to have a whole lot of space. So I just went ahead and I put a door so that they could access to another base game door, and put those stairs, because I did want them to have some space, because I imagine that Mary and Barry, even though they're not on the farm anymore, they still like to go outside and garden and woodwork and that kind of thing. So just sort of finishing the touches on the windows and doors, and like I said, I put in this dogs and cats wallpaper. I'm kind of reworking the floor plan just a little bit here because I wanted the front room to be the kitchen, and I just didn't feel that the layout that I had before for the kitchen was enough. I wanted the cabinets and the appliances to sort of flush against this corner here. I believe I used, those are, if I'm not mistaken, Parenthood cabinets that I used, but I did use base game, refrigerator, and stove. And I used this little bay window seat from Cats and Dogs. I thought that it just fit perfectly. When I saw the original picture, I thought, oh yeah, I'm using a bay window seating right here because that will be perfect. And I use this base game wallpaper for their bedroom. Now it's listed as being for like maybe a baby's room, but I love using that wallpaper for adult bedrooms or teen bedrooms. It's really pretty. I started to put a window over the sink. I love seeing those windows over the sink. Then I thought, what would you be looking at? You'd probably looking at another house because there is a lot right next to this one. And I was like, I don't want to look out of the window and just see another house. So I gave that up and just went ahead and put some upper cabinets there. And now I believe I just start working on the bathroom. Usually when I build, I like to work out the kitchen first and then the bathrooms, because a lot of times when I save it on the gallery, I'll save it with just the kitchen and the bathroom, and then I'll go through and I'll furnish the rest of the house and then upload a furnished version to the gallery, which I'll also do with this build. It's a big bathroom, but it has a purpose for being big. I do put the kitty litter box in there. Gave him a nice little walk-in closet. And now I'm starting the decorating, and I like to put my bigger items in first. So all my furniture, rugs, anything like that before I start detailing. So I'll start putting this big stuff in first and then I'll detail later. I decided to use these bookcases because I imagine that out of everything that they took with them from their farm when they downsized, I imagine that they took all of their books. So that was one thing that they were not going to give up. And they do have a TV, but I imagine that they rarely watch TV, that they are just constantly, if they're not outside gardening and woodworking, then they are reading books together. And as you can see, another deterrent from people wanting to stay over, just 2 chairs at the kitchen table. So, grandkids can come in and have a snack, but there's no room for you to have a meal. I loved using this bed from Cats and Dogs because it just looked very farmhouse. It looks, that quilt, I love using this bed because of the little quilt swatches, because I just imagine that maybe Mary made that quilt, and I imagine that she's made one for all of the kids, and she's, making them for the grandkids. That flooring on the outside there is from I believe it's from Outdoor Retreat. I just loved how rustic it looked. I cannot find a matching staircase for those banisters. I went through and I looked and I looked and I looked, and they just don't have a matching staircase. So I used this one. Comes in the same swatch, so I thought it would work. And now I'm working on the landscaping. Now I imagine that Mary and even Barry, I imagine that they really love to garden, and so they just sort of went crazy when it came to gardening this front lawn. They have just been toiling away over the few years that they've been here, and they've managed to make this really beautiful lawn or front yard with just all sorts of beautiful flowers. And I love when I'm building a tiny house to make the front yard as lush and as overgrown as possible, just to sort of make the tiny house feel a little bit more grand. Sometimes, just depending on what world I'm building in, I will go really minimal, but for this, I feel like Newcrest, everybody is, jockeying for the prettiest yard. And I imagine that Barry is just like, oh, my yard's gonna look better than anybody else's in the neighborhood, and since he's no longer working on his farm, I feel that maybe these flowers and landscaping and woodworking, he's always using his hands, and he, might have a little competition with next door neighbors. And so I really just wanted to make this front yard look as beautimous as possible. And I think I just used flowers from every single pack. I do not discriminate when it comes to the flowers. Now, in the backyard, I did make it very minimal because I wanted to be able to put some skill building items back here. So I have, I believe, a flower arranging table, the sculpting table, and then some flower beds for gardening. I put that, sorry if you heard that, it just hit my computer, but I put that little fence back there because behind this house there's like some community spaces. So there's like a grill, and I think there's a little playground back there too. So I thought that, maybe they don't have a grill of their own, that maybe Barry just kind of goes and uses the little park grill and brings it back over because it's not that far. And I imagine Barry's not the type of guy that spends money when he doesn't need to. So using these hedges, my favorite hedges that just completes any outdoor space in my opinion. Once again, more deterrent, only 2 seats outside, no one's staying over any longer than they have to. And I put in a couple of yard decorations. I started to put that bird feeder but decided against it. I think I just put in one of those little butterfly things from backyard, stuff pack, and then I put a bee box in here because I imagine that they like making their own honey. Maybe that's another thing that they brought over from the farm. And for Barry, I put in his tools that he uses to garden the front space with. I love adding those to the back of the house, and at this point I just wanted to put down some foundation because I thought it would just make it a lot prettier. Put a little outdoor furniture from backyard, and I start putting lights on the outside of the house as well. I put lights in the flower beds up the front because I just imagine that they want to showcase their beautiful garden any time of day, no matter what. And as you can see, now I'm starting to kind of put Rosie the cat in. I do change up the kitchen a little bit because I started to use this smaller little cat play jungle gym, but I was like, no, they're obsessed with Rosie. Rosie is their favorite child, so they're gonna give her something huge to play in. Like, you're gonna come in this house and know that a cat owns this place. And then I decided to put this little stereo here. I just thought, it being old-fashioned, that it might be something that they've had for years and years and years. And here's where I just start to add some more decoration. I did put a tiny TV over the fireplace, and I did so by opening up the cheat window and typing in bb.moveobjects, and that way I was able to use the Control and 9 key to raise that TV up. And now I'm just starting, of course, to put even more decorations in. Curtains, I use base game curtains because I just felt that they fit the place. I know there are curtains for cats and dogs, but I just really love these. I imagine that they brought these over from the old farm, which I imagine that picture from, I believe it's a Seasons picture. I imagine that is their farm, that maybe one of their kids did this fun little collage. They might be a photographer and made that special for them for their new house, so that, you know, Mary and Barry can look at the farm and remember the old days and reminisce. I imagine it was very difficult for them to leave their old farmhouse, but I think that they get along in this place now that, it's smaller, but I imagine that they just have a lot less stress. And I do imagine that maybe one of their kids still owns the farm. They may not operate it, but they still own it and just hire other employees to work the farm. So I'm just, putting in those final little touches, picture frames, brooms. I did think that maybe they collect all of their grandkids' artwork. So their kitchen, the little hallway that comes in the kitchen, is just packed full of art pieces that their grandkids have made for them. I decided to put this little chair in. Imagine out of the two of them, Barry loves books the most, that he's just obsessed with books, and that little area, that little corner in their bedroom is where he reads most of his books. Some other base game items that I thought really looked antique and things that they might have brought over from their farmhouse. That little flower, I imagine that, maybe one of their grandkids made that for them. Again, I'm using the Control and 9 key to move those shirts up on the bed. I imagine Mary does the laundry, but she expects Barry to put his laundry up, and she will not touch it once she has completed it. That is his job. I started to put in some items, some toys and things, but I kind of went back to, nope, this is Mary and Barry's house and nobody else lives here. So we're coming up on the end of the build. If you like this video, please give it a like, drop me a comment, please subscribe. Again, my name is Cece, and I promise never to break your game. Okay, bye.